So there was this discussion on my Discord, which I wanted to highlight, because it's about frustration and practicing. First post, it says, I've been meaning to ask you to elaborate on the last point you made in the practice regimen, embrace frustration. It's basically, this person is referring to a post I made here, so we should start there. I say here, I think the good thing to realize about all of this is that you know there's actually a good solution to almost every problem. Practice more. So then the key is, what should I practice? And my answer to that is always a couple of points. Practice 15 minutes of technique every day, even if you don't want to. And that is something that I always preach to everyone, including people that don't even play jazz, but maybe they play other styles. Practice technique every day. Just do it every day, even if you don't have time. You can find 15 minutes, hopefully. And also, there's no point in practicing 5 minutes. Practice 15 minutes. Put a timer. Don't practice longer, because technique you build up over time. But you have to do it daily. And what you do is you practice some technique exercise, some boring stuff with a metronome. For instance, you could use my technique exercises that are on my channel. You could use my technique ELO challenge, which is on my Discord. Practice, take anything there. Practice it really slowly with a metronome or a tempo that you can manage. Try to get faster, of course, and be very precise. Hyper focus on the thing that you're focusing on. So maybe you're doing this phrase number 7 from my ELO challenge. Right, that challenge. So the first thing you focus on is the picking. So you go very slowly and you figure out alternate sweep, right? Maybe you focus on that for like 3 minutes, then you focus on the triplet timing. Oh, it's 16s with accents maybe, and then you focus on something else. Maybe you want to focus on position changes. Whatever it is, you focus on it with the greatest attention for detail ever. And after 15 minutes, if you don't have time to do anything else, at least you practice technique. But if you have more time, let's continue with my post. Practice something you would love to be able to learn. For instance, a lick, a chord, a solo, a tune, right until the moment that the activity of practicing that thing becomes boring, and then switch to something else. And that basically means that you should never practice something longer than you feel you are engaged with that particular thing. Except for technique, right? Remember, 15 minutes of technique every day. But then you maybe practice some triplet phrase that you picked up by, I don't know who, Stochelo. Of course, technique is still important, but it's not the same hyper-focus. You're now also trying to just learn this phrase because you love it. But as soon as you get bored with it or frustrated, then stop and switch to something else, because you're not practicing that day to get that lick in your playing forever. Because a lot of stuff that you practice will never get into your playing. We'll get to that. So it's just more about the practicing itself. It's not about the specific thing you practice. And because it's about the practicing itself, that time should be as valuable as possible. And it will only be valuable if you are practicing something that you like. As soon as it's something that you don't like, except for technique, remember, then you will lose concentration or you will get fed up with it, and that's not what you want. You want to always be practicing something that you like. So I'm not talking about if you can play it. Something that you like, that you would like to be able to play. Okay, no matter what you practice, timing is always a factor, so use a metronome and try to be precise with your swing timing. And that is very important. A lot of times I see people practicing, like they practice this. And the only thing I hear is... No. Slow down, take a metronome, and think about the timing. Sing the timing. So that's why singing is important, or in this case, singing is great. Because if you sing, there's no technical limitation, and you sing the timing. Don't sing the notes. You can sing the notes if you want to, but I don't care about that. And try to imagine that you're playing it. With a metronome, right? And then you go. So that's the timing thing. Don't focus on the goal, focus on the work. So when the day is over, be proud of the practice you did, even if you didn't reach the goal you are aiming for. Goals will come, you just won't really notice it when it finally does. Right? Don't focus on the goal, because you won't make the goal in one day or 1 week or maybe in a month. Focus on the work. Say, okay, I practiced for an hour today, 2 hours, and it was all very effective because I only practiced things I liked. Be proud of that. Be happy with that, the time that you put in, not the goal. The goal is not important. The goal will come. And then the last point was embrace frustration. And that's something that's my answer to like the hundreds times that I got the question about people that wanted to stop because they couldn't do it and they'd be never able to do it. And they see all these other people, they see these 3-year-old kids that can do it and they can't, and they probably don't have talent and they're too late. And I don't know, the car needs fixing, and I don't know, they was hungry or sleepy. Embrace that feeling, because it means that you are working on improving yourself. Because if you be happy all the time about what you did, that means you're probably practicing something that you're already capable of doing, which is not bad in itself. Sometimes you want to focus on details of something that you can already do, right? Like a waltz, you want to get a little bit better, maybe nicer vibrato, that's fine. But even in that case, you should be a little bit frustrated because you're not getting the vibrato that you want. Because if you are getting the vibrato that you want, you are already capable of doing it. So why are you practicing it? Doesn't mean that you can never play something that you can already play. Sometimes it's very nice to do that, just for fun. But remember, that's for fun. It's not for practice. Okay, now let's go back to his reaction. So he says, I've been meaning to ask you to elaborate on the last point you made in the practice regimen, embrace frustration. You've made observations here and there on your own frustrations about, for example, fluidly playing the diminished arpeggio over 6 strings. So it's this thing. That's part of my ELO challenge, by the way. I was very frustrated about that lick. In fact, it was over 5 strings. It was this thing. It's a bridge of Bosso Dorado, where you go... That phrase, the Stockholm phrase, I was working on it for months, literally for months. And then I was sitting on the couch downstairs. We have a new couch, but the old couch. And I was just trying to do that. But it sounded like this. It didn't matter how long I was practicing it slowly and speeding it up. It just didn't work. Especially not when there was pressure, like on a gig or when I wanted to show someone I couldn't do it. And I was so frustrated with it that even me, somebody who has been practicing his whole life, all kinds of different things, and I realized how things work, I was like, it's too late. I will never be able to do it. I started playing guitar too late. There's no way I'm going to get over this hurdle. I did. I came over the hurdle. I can play it much faster now than is necessary for that particular song. I have complete confidence that I'm able to do it in very fast tempos, and it's basically 95% succeeding rate. I know that. So I got over it. That's what I mean. Like, embrace the frustration. At that point, I should have said to myself, oh, that's great. You're very frustrated. That's good. Practice some more. You've also casually tossed off comments about it taking a couple of years to get good at certain technical abilities. That's a lot of potential frustration. That's right. That is. That's why you should only practice technique for 50 minutes a day, because that practice time will be very, very frustrating if you're doing it correctly, because you'll be working on something that is really out of your reach. And you have to give it time. That's why it's 15 minutes a day and not like 2 hours a day. You want to expose yourself to that kind of frustration for longer than 15 minutes, I find. And then it's going to take a couple of years to learn something new. If I would now start practicing sweeping, but I mean sweeping up like a. Right? I have no intention of doing it because that's not something I want to learn. But let's say I would do it. I would also have to do it 50 minutes a day, and it would be very frustrating because I cannot do it at all. But I know if I just give it time, then probably 2 years, 3 years, I'll get to a pretty good level. But those 3 years will be very frustrating. I know that. For 50 minutes a day, I'll be very frustrated. You hint at dealing with it by focusing on the work, not the goals, in order to feel you're accomplishing something daily. Right. Personally, I use that technique. Additionally, I like to place something beautiful at the end of my practice session in order to end on a positive note. That sounds like a very smart thing to do. Why not? Probably I do that too. Sometimes, I get fed up with the thing I'm practicing and I put on a backing track and just have some fun. Why not? But I do realize I'm not practicing at that time. I'm just trying to have fun. And I can have fun in many different ways. I can also have fun by watching Netflix or playing a computer game. So it doesn't necessarily have to be fun on the guitar. But I understand that is also a good thing to do. But you can also do then maybe go to a jam or call a friend. Right? There's many ways of having fun. But don't mistake jamming for practicing. Jamming is not practicing. Sure, there are elements about jamming that are very important for your development. Very, very important. But you're not practicing any new skills there, apart from ensemble playing, which of course in itself is very important. But you're not improving your technique or your vocabulary necessarily. You might if you have that as a goal, but then probably the jam won't be as fun. So I'd appreciate your and other thoughts on working through or embracing frustration of coming to terms with your limitations, and perhaps some observations on how you have seen others become accomplished players. And I have seen many people become accomplished players. One of them, of course, is Sam Farthing. I saw him the first time when he was like 15, 14. Now he's maybe 19. And he was already pretty good, but it was nowhere near the level he's now. So I know how he accomplished it by practicing a lot. And for some reason, some people have less trouble with the practicing part of it than others, or that you never hear them complain about it. I didn't see Sam a lot in the past few years, but Henry Ecker I saw many more times, and his father told me Henry is just practicing all day, like 10 hours a day. But I never heard Henry complain about any difficulties, but I'm sure he had those, all right? He just didn't complain about it, or maybe he was talking to his father about it. But I'm sure he had those. I talked about it with Stochelo, though. And Stochelo, same thing. He was practicing 10 to 12 hours a day. But he was like from the age to 10 to 15. And he couldn't really remember, when I asked him about it like 5 years ago, that it was frustrating for him. But I'm sure there were many moments that were frustrating, because he did tell me that in order to learn the jungle solos, he had to slow down that record with a record player, and it was very difficult to do with a needle, and he would ruin the record, and his father would get angry, and he would ruin the needle. I mean, that sounds like very frustrating, and I'm very happy we don't have to do that. We can just use YouTube or transcribe. But he couldn't remember, though, that was frustrating. So maybe it wasn't for him, maybe he had fun. But okay, let's look at some answers, maybe not everything. Might take too long. Okay, here you go. I'm not very good, but here are my thoughts anyway. That doesn't mean you have to be good to share your thoughts. Probably better if you are in the middle of it to share your thoughts. I've had to accept that things take longer than I think they will. I spent ages jumping from one lick, solo, or book to another, frustrated that the material didn't stick immediately, and always anxious to move on to the next thing. So this is what I think an error in thought, because you're not practicing for things to stick immediately, because nothing will stick immediately. In my experience, for me, nothing has ever stuck immediately. You're practicing to get better at something that you're practicing, but not necessarily to get good at that one thing you're practicing. You're only practicing that one thing because you love it, and you would wish it to be part of your playing, but it might never happen. That's very important to realize. It might never happen. But you're getting better at guitar playing, and some things will stick. You just never know what that thing is going to be, and you might surprise yourself. So if you switch to something else because you think you will find something there that might stick immediately, you will be frustrated in the wrong way, I think, because don't expect that result. I've never had that result myself. I always surprise myself. Like if I listen to myself play like 5 years ago and now, I will be very surprised on the stuff I was playing back then and the stuff I'm playing now. Doesn't seem that it panned out the way I thought it was going to pan out. That doesn't mean I won't be happy with it, but I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I might get some amazing George Benson things in my fingers or some Pasquale Grasso or not. Or maybe I get some Birelli outside stuff all of a sudden. I was practicing a little bit and it stuck. Or maybe not. I don't know. So I recently put my pride aside and embraced repetition. I just started book 1, that's my book, and I thought I might be able to fly through the basic shapes. They're basic after all, and I've been playing for quite a while. But alas, it looks like it'll be a while before I can confidently and automatically apply them to any key at about any speed. But I get excited knowing that eventually it'll happen. That's great. I also limit how many videos I watch of phenomenal players. I can't help but compare myself to them, and it kills my motivation to play basic shapes in all 12 keys for an hour and a half. I can understand that, but personally for me, it inspires me to see great players. But I understand why he feels this way. I don't think you should feel that way, though. Just accept that you will never sound exactly like those people, just like they would never sound exactly like you, right? I play in the same school as Stochelo and Moses and Paulus, but I will never sound like any of them. But they also don't sound like each other. Paulus and Moses basically started out playing guitar to sound like Stochelo, but they didn't. Now they sound like themselves, and it's all great. So they found their own way in playing in that style that is unique and personal, but it's not like Stochelo. And Stochelo started playing guitar to sound like Django, basically. And he doesn't sound like Django. There's a lot of Django in his playing. He sounds like Stochelo. That's great. So if you listen to a great player, don't listen for it and compare it to yourself and think to yourself, well, man, I'm very far away from sounding like this person. You will never sound like him, but maybe you can take something from their playing and add it to your own playing. But maybe not. It's not important as long as you are adding stuff. Okay. This is a good comment. Keep at it, man. It takes time. And that's, everything I said until now can be actually summarized with this line. Keep at it. It takes time. Okay. So here we have another post. I think repetition is a big key factor, and also to limit the material you actively are working on. Taking one lick and the next weeks or even months applied at every occasion, every solo you play. So I want to say about this is, yes, I agree with maybe not doing too much, but don't make a set plan for yourself and how you should do things. Because this invites the thing I just warned about, is where you get bored. If you say, okay, I can only practice this one thing for the next 3 weeks, what are you going to do if you get bored with it after 3 days? Now you set yourself up for a lot of unnecessary disappointment and boredom. Just practice something that you would like, and if you don't like it anymore or get bored, switch to something else, and you might come back to this one thing. And this is a very difficult thing to do, because you will feel like you didn't achieve the task you were set out to do. But trust me, believe me, because I had that feeling many times, this is how it works. And it happened many times to me that I was like learning all of this blues stuff. I made this video called Sophisticated Blues Licks, Peter Bernstein licks. Man, must have practiced those licks like hundreds of times, and I always keep forgetting them, and that makes me kind of angry. And it's like, I should be able to play those phrases. They're not difficult, but I just keep forgetting them. I never find a place to play them. But then I realized, you know what? Who cares? You're frustrated with it. You had enough. Let's switch. And some of these phrases will actually get into my playing. I played one in the solo just now. I didn't plan it, but I played the... Well, I played it. So You never know when it's going to happen. Let's see. Christian several times said it's something everyone struggles with. That's true. Even the pros. Also true. I always reference the conversation I had with Olli Soikeli, 2018, I think, in Seattle, Festival 2017. And because every time I saw Olli, he was like, it seemed like he had like 1,000 new different licks in his fingers. He's also really a lick practicer. And every time I saw him, we were always exchanging licks. And I said, man, how do you manage to retain all that new stuff? And then he said, that's what you think, but 90% of what I practice is wasted. That's what he basically said. 90% of what I practice is wasted. And I was like, yeah, I should have known that, because that's the same for everyone. So in the end, it's about how many hours of structured work you put in. That's true. Let's say of 100% you practice, about 5% will be stuff that gets your way into your improvisations. That means we have to practice a shit ton of material so that we are even at a point to be able to truly improvise. But the thing is, that's normal. Yeah, so I made this video called Jazz Guitar is like throwing darts. I made this mental picture where you have a darts board and everybody's outside the room, but nobody's seeing you. And you have 100 darts and you throw them all at the same time at the darts board. One is probably going to hit bullseye. One. Maybe another one's very close. Then you run to the board, you take out all of the darts that missed their goal, and then you invite everyone in. And you look and you point at the board and say, look, I hit bullseye. And people are like, wow, he's a really good darts player. That's how I view jazz guitar. You're practicing 100 things. And then when the gig is there, you only play one of them or two of them. And that one thing sounds great. And everyone's like, wow, this guy, he hears the most genius lines in his head. But you can be disappointed at yourself because you only focus on the 99 things that you practiced but that didn't come out. But that's not what a person that listens to you experiences. They only hear what you play. So I think Double Whiskey here makes a very good observation. For you to be able to play a fluid improvisation, like for 3 choruses, you need to work on a shit ton of material to make that happen. And that's correct. And there will be many holes in your playing, like, oh, I cannot play on this tune in these bars and never manage to play something there. But it will come, but just will take a very long time. At least if you work the way I work. Repetition is good, but it needs to be the right kind of repetition. To improve, you must be practicing right at the border of your current abilities. Yes, yeah, that's true. I think that important detail is missed when people say things like, you need to keep repeating it. Correct, right? There's no point in repeating something that you could already play the first time. I think a good perspective is if something like a lick crawls its way into your arsenal, it's awesome. If you practice 10 more and they are gone after a month, it doesn't matter. It's also not lost time because practicing made you better as well. They might be gone, but it left a new connection of shapes in your brain, or even just because you played the guitar in a focused way is a positive contribution to the level. Right, and the way I always phrase this in workshops, say, if you manage, so for instance, let's say you buy my 3rd book, which is a book about Django in the 30s. There is a lot of phrases in that book, like way too many for any person to be able to practice and play them. Not even 15% of it. You can practice them all, but to be really playing them. But the way I phrase this, let's say you work on that book and you do a gig and you manage to play one of those phrases, you should congratulate yourself. You really did something special there, because that's something you have never played before. It's something new. You have to be very proud of that fact, because it's difficult to achieve that, and it's something that you never played before. You made it sound good, with good timing, and now that you managed to do it once, you'll be able to do it again and again. And at one point, this will be something that you will always see or hear, let's say, see on the guitar or hear in your head. For instance, like a phrase like this, which is like a D7. I always see that phrase. Every time I play, I see it. I don't know why. Something about it that just struck a chord with me. I practiced it endlessly. I see it so much, I hear it so much that I have to actually stop myself from playing it sometimes. Now, what I did do is practice all kinds of variations, right? Or all kinds of continuations or variations or starts to still be able to play it a lot, but make it sound subtly different. And there's more phrases like that. Like this phrase I see all the time. Let's say D minor 7, G7 C, so 2 5 1 2 C, 1 2 3. I always hear and see that phrase, so I just know a ton of variations. Right, so these are all based on the same idea, and yeah, it's great that when I've discovered, oh, this is a phrase that I really like, it's a be ready thing, then I worked on the variations, and now it's something I can always fall back onto. Growing up, I was one of those young lion types. Took to things quickly, pushed past peers, saying there's always someone better doesn't do anything for me because that's just the truth. It is, unless you're Amati Schmidt. Maybe nobody's better than Amati. No, I bet there are some people that he would look to and like, wow, I wish I could do that. There's always something better at some part of it that you're doing, always. Yet I still get a little nervous and envious of others when I see them doing well or going fast. I think that's natural because equivalent time, money, effort spent doesn't mean equivalent results. Yeah, that's natural. I don't really get envious myself because I'm also quite confident in the way I play. I like it, and I realize that it's a complete way of playing. And yeah, I can add more stuff, but it's not necessary to play anything or any gig or any concert, and I know it will sound good. And I'm happy with that, and then I can only build from that foundation that it sounds good. But I can imagine if you have a lot of holes in your playing, then you'll see somebody play that doesn't have these holes that makes you envious because you won't be able to do that, like play in that fluid manner. But I think once you reach that level where you can play any tune at most tempos and make it sound good, then you probably also realize that this is good enough. I don't have to be Birelli or Brady Winterstein to also be a good player. And I think it's important to be a good player because if you have this kind of your lowest level is already good, then you can really feel freedom when you're playing because you realize, okay, even if I mess up or get lost, I still know I will sound pretty good. So now you have a lot of freedom and peace of mind to start taking risks. Try that triplet line that you're not sure that you're going to make it. The way I cope with it is just focusing on two things. What will get me good gigs and what am I passionate about doing it in this moment. Yeah, and Character Swing is a great player, so of course he gets good gigs. Okay, here. I think this is the most important point of licks, phrases, loops-based improvisation. And loops is a concept from my book. In my opinion, this constant frustration and inefficiency in learning helps to explain why improvisation based on skills, modes, and arpeggios is undoubtedly more widespread and more widely taught. Which is, I think it's partly true. I don't think it's the only reason. I think one of the biggest reasons why people teach skills is because it's easy to teach. Because if you take a lesson with me, basically, it could be over in 10 minutes. I could say, okay, who do you like? Oh, you like Stochelo Rosenberg? Okay, transcribe 5 solos by Stochelo. Or join the Rosenberg Academy. Or watch one of my videos and learn 10 phrases. And then do that for the next 4 weeks, and I will see you in a month. And then in a month, we play some tunes, and he plays one of those licks. Say, oh, that's great. Who else do you like? So, of course, I could say something about timing and about technique, but, you can also watch some videos. So that's not really a good basis for a teacher to have weekly students and make money that way. it's then better to teach scales because that's something that's very teachable, and we can go over all the fingerings of the scales, and then we can do some improvisation with the scales. Most of it probably won't sound any good. But most people that sound good with scales are actually playing phrases based on the scales. But of course, I don't want to go too much into that because then the lesson will be over, and I can only see you in 6 months. So I think that is one side of the coin why it's taught so much. And the other side of the coin is, of course, the people receiving it, they rather hear that practicing skills will teach them improvisation because it's something that they can really practice in a very organized way. And you're practicing, okay. Okay, that was C. Okay, now I'm going to do an F. So it's a very organized way, and you feel like you're doing something. And next week you show the skills, like, oh, very good. Now let's try the harmonic minor. But that's not going to help you at all when we say, okay, let's play Donnelly, 1, 2, 3. Or what are you going to do with those skills? And the step, like how to use that in improvisation, is missing. Because as soon as we're going to talk about how to use the skill in improvisation, we're going to go to phrases because it has to fit in the bar and it has to connect. So, for instance, like this skill I just played, major skill, I could teach you how to play it in Donnelly. I would say, well, don't play it up, play down, and just play until there. And then we need to have something for F7. So then we play diminished. So play that. But notice now we're practicing a lick. Because now I made the skill into a lick that fits in that bar and connects to the next phrase. And that part is usually missing in lessons. Because as soon as we do that, you're gone for 6 months. Why have to practice 100 licks only to end up with 5 when you improvise? What's to stop you from immediately working on just 5 licks, confident that you'll be able to use them all? But of course he knows that, but that will never happen. If you just practice 5 licks, statistically, I think 4 of them are a big chance, maybe all 5 of them, that you will actually never play them because they're not connected in any way. They don't fit with your current technical level. You can't play them in every tempo. So that's why you have to practice 100 licks to find the 5, if you're lucky, because that's a higher percentage, it's 5%. You remember? No, 5%. 5% seems reasonable, actually. To get the 5%, you need to practice. To get the 5 licks, you need to actually practice 100 licks. Seriously, you have to put all your effort into the 100 licks to get the 5. Is there a convenient way to get all your books in Europe? There is. It's just my web store. You're on Twitch, so I'll put you. I can use my bot. So those are my socials. As you can see, there's a web store. If you go to the web store, all my books are there. So that's the easiest way to get them everywhere. It doesn't mean if it's Europe or United States or Australia. Today, thanks to neuroscience and a better understanding of brain function, it's possible to use memorization techniques to memorize whole pages of music. I'm not sure if that's correct, though, because classical musicians have been playing pages of music for centuries. I was able, when I was like 10 years old, I was able to play whole concertos by heart. Many of them. The reason why is because most of them were so difficult that you had to practice every bar for multiple hours. And then there was a teacher giving you fingering, so you were practicing it so much that it just stuck in your brain because of the repetition. But that's not the same as jazz, because in classical music you always play the same order of the phrases, right? That's the composition. In jazz, you actually also have to come up with the phrases at the right time, and you have complete freedom. So it's also possible to memorize dozens of licks. It is possible, but only in that order that's on the paper then. That has nothing to do with improvisation. The mechanism that has not been studied to my knowledge, or not sufficiently, is that which enables us during improvisation to be able to recall quickly enough in working memory all the licks that can be played on a given chord and in a given position on the neck, in order to choose the one that suits us best. So he's basically saying, too bad there's no research on how to effectively get licks into your playing so that you can use them during improv. But my thoughts on it is that If that's your hope, that every lick that you practice will make your way into improv, you'll be even more frustrated than you already are gonna be. Just don't focus on that goal. Focus on the work, on working on them, and just trust the process. The process is that you throw the hundreds of darts, and then two will hit bullseye. That's the process I trust on. And you hear how I play. If you like that the way I play, then you also know that it works. And if you think, of course, he's repeating himself too much, of course, then maybe my way is not good. I don't think I repeat myself that much, but there was, of course, a time where I was repeating myself a lot because I didn't have a lot of vocabulary. But it's growing every year, slowly but steadily. Okay, last post here by Gian, who's also in the chat. There are some very good books that can shed some light on your point about the mechanism that has not been studied, to my knowledge. Okay, that's just a quote. I just read Peak by Anders Ericsson. You know, my girlfriend also read that. And he talks about mental representations. He gives examples on how chess grandmasters use it and how airplane fighter pilots use it. After reading the book, my thought is that the best improvisers have so many ingrained mental representations of various music situations, chord progressions that are stored in their long-term memory, and that is what makes it seem like it's easier for them to improvise. Yeah, no, this is probably correct. I've had so much experience playing on certain progressions, and I know what works. I always refer to heuristics. Right? I have just a couple of things that are just in my fingers that always work. Basically, it's the basic shapes from book 1. I know all of them fluently. That's 5 basic shapes, and I can make whole improvisations using only the basic shapes. So the illusion is, of course, that if you buy my book and you just do that, you can also get to that level. But again, the chance of the 5 basic shapes sticking in your mind, being able to find them at every moment, that's just a small chance. So even with my basic shapes, I would say don't just stay there, right? Practice them, but go on. And they might find your way into your playing. I think those shapes are very good. They are a very good representation of what gypsy jazz is in the basis. But maybe your basic shapes, like the shapes that you always find, will be slightly different from mine. So they're good to practice because they give you a good overview of what gypsy jazz, the gypsy jazz sound is. But maybe I didn't say that enough in the first book. I still think you should go on. And don't make yourself a slave to those basic shapes. I don't think you should do that. Apart maybe from the diminished arpeggio. That's something that you will be so useful for you that maybe you should really learn that one. Your shapes are the mental representations? Yes, of course. And I have many more shapes than the basic shapes in my book. There are my basic shapes, and I can play a whole improv with only them. But then what makes my improv not the same every time is because I interweave in between the shapes other stuff that I just practiced or that I worked on separately from the book, right? But yeah, I hope this was somewhat helpful. The goal of what I was doing here is to make you practice harder. Because that's the only thing in the end what's going to make you better. It's practice more and don't give up. And it's very easy to give up. It's much easier to give up practicing jazz than practicing anything else that is not improv, like classical or fingerstyle. That's usually what happens. People go to a gypsy jazz camp and I show things in the lessons and it's all very clear. People are very excited. And then they start practicing it after the class. I hear them practicing the whole way. And a half hour later, I hear them do a fingerstyle arrangement that they can really play really well and sounds very great. But I know what happened there. They were working on it. They discovered it's a little bit more difficult than they thought it was. And they made the calculation, okay, there's no way I can actually incorporate this tonight in the jam session. You know what? I'm going to play this fingerstyle thing that already sounds good. I understand how that happens, but this is not how you get good at improv. You just have to put in more time. Don't give up. If something doesn't work directly, immediately, then don't give up. And if you give up, if something doesn't work immediately, then you will give up every day, multiple times. For me, nothing works there immediately. Nothing ever has in improv. It's all very difficult. That's the truth. Okay.